Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling. And man, I really appreciate you guys making some time out of your day to check the video. I know how busy life is and how busy everybody is, so thanks a lot for spending a little time with me today on the video. Guys, today we are going to give a refresher course. We're going to go over more than a refresher course. We're going to give you guys 5 or 6 different ways to actually work a Texas rig worm. Now, this may sound fundamental bass fishing 101. It is on some level. But another level, it's not, because a lot of the techniques I'm going to show you here will trigger strikes under certain conditions when other retrieves won't. So I think there's going to be some good information for everybody here, regardless of your skill level as an angler. So real quick, guys, before we get started, just a couple quick housekeeping tips to keep the lights on here in the tackle room. I just wanted to remind you about a few things you can do to help support the channel. I know this is monotonous every week, but it's a good way to support what's going on here. Please swing by, check out fishthemoment.com, or virtual lessons that you can book with me, or the lake map breakdowns. We got them for every season of the year out there. If we don't have one on our website, you can book a lesson with me and we can go over any lake you want to. I'll put that Fish the Moment lake map breakdown virtual lesson link in the description of this video. So much appreciated with that. Okay guys, let's go over this. We've got 5 or 6 different ways I'm going to show you here about working a Texas rig worm. And when I'm talking about Texas rig, guys, I'm talking about the old school Texas rig. I'm talking about the slip sinker, not pegged, just sliding like this, just a Texas rig worm. This thing's been catching fish for 60 years and it's still as productive as it's ever been, unless you're live scoping, and then the Texas rig worm is probably not up your alley. So this is sort of a non-live scopers video. It's more of an old school hogging video. But anyway, guys, that's what we're talking about today, is just the old school plastic worm, Texas rig, basic setup there. Okay, so in other words, there's a lot of different ways that you can work the worm, and a lot of this has to do with your water clarity, your water temperature, and specifically the type of cover that you're fishing, and also the weight that you're using on your worm. There's a lot of different variables to that, but I'm going to sort of go through the ways that I work a worm, and I'm going to sort of explain a little bit about the situations that I do it in. Now, first of all, you've got just the traditional way of working a worm, which this is the way that I do quite a bit. You know, I'll make my pitch out there, or make my cast wherever I'm casting, and I keep my rod tip like anywhere between, say, 10 or 11 o'clock, and I'm just lifting it up like that, and I'm just sort of twitching the rod tip as I bring it up. And I'll take the slack up, and I'm just twitching the rod tip like that, working it almost up to 12 o'clock. I can't because I got the ceiling here. But in other words, this is the standard 101 way to work a worm. And you can get away with this and catch a lot of fish doing this. And it works good in a lot of different situations. It works good really regardless of the sinker size you're using or the type of areas that you're fishing. It doesn't work that good in super heavy cover. But if you're looking for just one way to work a worm, the way to do it is start out at about 9 or 10 o'clock and just work it up like that without reeling. You don't want to reel the handle, just work it up like this until you get to 11 or 12, take up the slack and do it again. That's probably how most of the people work the plastic worm, but there's a lot of other ways. Now, the next way that I like to do it is sort of with the pulling method. And this is what I sort of do with the pulling method. I'll make a cast out there, and once it hits the bottom, I just pull it with I got the worm caught on the boat there. But once I make the cast, I'm not putting action like that on it. I'm just pulling the worm back like this all the way. And I'll even pull it behind my head, and then I'll reel up the slack and I'll just pull it again like that. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll do it sort of sidearm like that. Now, when you want to work a plastic worm like this is when you're trying to cover a lot of territory. Let's say, for example, you're fishing a big flat point or an area that's got a lot of uniform bottom where there's not much cover down there. By working it like this, you can cover a lot more water as long as you keep it on the bottom. And when you're doing it like that, I tend to like a heavier sinker. I usually use a 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce sinker for the most part with that. Now, the other way that I was talking about like this, when you work it just like this up here, a lot of times like that is when you're maybe coming through some brush or rocks or drop-offs, that type of stuff. So that's the second way. Now, the next way to do it is actually shaking a worm. Now, the way you do this is this is when I usually like to shake a worm. It's like I'll be working the worm you know, like I normally do, up here like this, and say, okay, say right now, I felt a piece of brush or something. And I know that the fish, I know there's some brush down there, or I can feel the worm coming over some cover. Once I feel the cover in there, I stop the worm and I switch my hands over here like this, and I put my left hand on the reel and my right hand like that, and then I just shake it in one spot without moving it. I got my thumb on the thumb handle here, and I'm just shaking it in that spot, just vibrating that rod tip like you can see. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to keep the worm in and around that cover that I just felt a lot of times. And not only will I shake it like that in one spot, but sometimes I'll just dead stick it. I'll let it set for, you know, 10 or 15 seconds or however long I can stand it, and then just start working it like that. And a lot of times by leaving it in that type of area for a long time, eventually that bass will just get angry and bite that thing with that. Okay, the other two ways I like to do, there's two more ways, is the next one would be the hopping method. Now the hopping method is something that works really good in the summertime when the water's hot and the fish are on structure. Say for example, you found some deep brush, or you're on a deep drop off, or you're just fishing deep in general, deep trees, deep cover, that stuff, that type of stuff. You want a heavy sinker. You want a half ounce to a 3/4 ounce sinker. And it's best if the water's got some pretty decent clarity, like at least 3 foot of clarity. So what I'll do is I'll cast it out there in the deep water, and once the bait hits, once the worm hits the bottom, I snap it off the bottom like that. And I'm not even reeling it, I'm just popping it. Let me get my worm back out there. I'm popping it real hard off the bottom, just boom, just like that. One time, boom, just like that. And I'm trying to get that worm to dart up off the bottom, and since it's got a heavy sinker on it, it's going to fall right back down. And a lot of times in that water, if it's really warm, you know, they're going to get it like that. Now the final way, all these ways that we've talked about so far are more for casting the worm into open water. But one other thing that, as far as working it, is if you're pitching and flipping this worm around some type of cover. Now it's a plastic worm video, but traditional plastic worm is for just worming around. But if you do get into some type of cover where you're pitching and flipping, like a lay down or a bush or a dock, one of the best ways that you can do, that you can learn as far as this, is once you make your pitch in there like that, switch your hand over to your right hand, just like what we talked to before, and work the bait like this, bringing it up like this and shaking it all the way up like that. So I'll pitch, say example, I'll pitch in that bush right there or in that lay down tree, and then I'm working it like this. Even if it's a bush, it's coming up over that limb or it's coming up over that lay down limb, and I'll work it up straight like that, and then I'll let it fall back down to the bottom. Work it up like that, let it fall back down to the bottom. And what I'm trying to do is, this works if your line is over an object. If it's over a branch or a limb or something like that, you're not trying to bring the bait back to you. You're trying just to get it, you're trying to make it come straight up and fall back down in one spot. And that's a good way to catch them if you're flipping and pitching. But anyway, guys, old school plastic worm, man, I know a lot of people don't fish it anymore. They get, you know, there's so much soft plastics out there. We've got like soft plastic stick baits. We got different type of creature baits. We got a ton of different soft plastics. And at times, just the old school plastic worm will outfish all of them. I know a lot of old dudes that are in their 80s that's literally all they fish is an old Texas straight plastic worm, and they catch them every time they go. So hope it helps out. We'll talk later, guys.